Welcome everyone, my name is Darko, and today we have our special guest, Hanli Hoefer.
Hello.
And Hanli is a model, actress, and a presenter, and she works for MTV Asia, HBO Asia, and VICE. And we're going to get into a lot of topics today, of course, on her acting career, her modeling career, how she became a presenter, and also how she's working with her personal brand, how she's been able to build that up and amass a huge following and become a celebrity in her own right. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And Hanli, thanks for coming on the show.
I am so excited to be a guest on this show. And also thank you for such an illustrious intro. It's always weird to hear about yourself in that sense, isn't it? Like when someone tells you what you've done, you're kind of like, oh yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah, so take us back. So you're from Singapore.
So I am Singaporean German.
Okay.
I grew up in Singapore. I'm one of those international kids, third culture kid, whatever label people want to call it. I have this, international school accent, but I've never lived outside of Asia. I'm half German on paper, but I identify pretty much fully as Asian. So already from my origin story is complicated.
But you sound so American. Oh my God.
No, I know. I hate it. And I always feel like people are always like, oh, you sound American because you watch so much TV growing up, which is kind of true, but rude for pointing out. Now, I don't know why we all sort of ended up with this accent, or like some of them have like a more British twang. You've met a bunch of international like kids, adults, right?
My theory is that they just learned from American teachers, so they just pick up that accent along the way.
Yeah.
Like you went to school in Singapore, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it does make sense. Like our teachers were all, foreign, and all the media that we digested, it was basically American or British. That's what their biggest export is, right? Like entertainment. So it made sense.
So you grew up in Singapore?
Yes.
So what's that like growing up in such a strict country? Right?
Well, it obviously has its amazing benefits. Like Singapore is just cool, like it's one of the cleanest nations in the world. It's definitely the safest, no doubt. I mean, as a woman, I can walk through the streets at 3 a.m. by myself, wearing whatever I wanted, like, all my jewelry, and I know that I'll get home safe. That doesn't happen for a majority of the world. Like we are very blessed to have that level of safety. And I think culturally, Singapore is made up of 4 primary cultures. We don't actually attach to one main culture. We're Chinese, Malay, Indian, and then they call it others because it's just such a melting pot.
People like me.
But yeah, what's up? I'm also other, the others. So we're also like so diverse with our culture, and, we've got amazing food. We've got incredible architecture. But then again, the downside of it is that we're a very strict and structured nation. But hey, some people like that. Some people like structure, So did you get structure from that then as growing up, or what were you like growing up? So I don't know. I think in terms of structure, growing up in a structured environment is great, right? Stability, everything that a kid needs in that element and that aspect, like everything's very reliable. I think also the way that, so my father's German, another structured nation. Yeah. And my mother, she is Singaporean, but they're both very creative people. So it's interesting. I had this mix of routine, structure, and, everything that comes with that. And then I had this openness from their perspective of the world. My mother's a writer. She worked in fashion. She's like a journalist. She's very creative. And my father, he's a publisher and a photographer and an artist. So growing up, I had this really great balance of both. And I guess it kind of gave me the best of both worlds, right? I could be, regimented one day and then very fluid the next. So, yeah.
So were you creative then as a kid? Because your parents both in creative vocations. So did that lend itself to your creativity as well?
I'd say I was quite a creative kid. There's a huge irony to how I ended up working in television and media, because my father didn't actually allow my brother and I to watch TV.
Oh.
Yeah, right? We didn't have cable growing up. And he had this rule where if the sun is out, the screens are off. So we were forced to play outside and just, that old school, even though I'm not that old, but that old school, like screen-free way of being raised, which just allowed my brother and I to tap into our own imagination. So I think because of that, yeah, I'd say I was and still am quite creative.
So the sun is out, screens away, right?
Screens are off.
Screens are off.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing for someone watching, like if they're a parent, to implement with their children.
Do you think that that's possible these days to do with kids?
Yes, I do think so.
Yeah.
I think for kids these days, it'll be hard for them to like figure out what to do because they're so used to being on their screen. Like my baby brother's, he's 7 years old now, and he's just so used to being on his iPad that if you enforce that rule into the household, then he'll be like, all right, what do I do now?
Absolutely. And at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, the screen takes out a lot of headache and pressure and just saves the parents a lot of energy when they need to keep their kids entertained or just a bit quiet when they're out. But I don't know. I feel like in an ideal sense, I would love to pass that on if I ever have kids to keep their creativity fresh and young and pure. But it makes me wonder if that's something that we can really do in this age.
I think that's such a tough thing to do because most parents, I think most parents haven't dealt with their own trauma. So, a loud kid they judge that as a bad thing. It's like, oh, my kid's being loud, or he's talking about some crazy idea. Like his imagination is going so wild, he just needs to shut the fuck up. I'm going to give him the iPad.
Yeah, they can't handle it because they haven't processed their own.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the iPads were really I feel like, okay, going off tangent, but I feel like to a degree, we grew up raised half by the internet, right? Like Google taught me more in my life than a lot, right?
Real talk.
Real talk. So in the future, it's almost like, I don't think there can be a childhood or a system where the kids don't have access to screens that often. I don't know. We're not parents. We don't know yet, do we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't know. We're just speculating out here. So were you always interested in the modeling world, being an actress, presenting? Were you always interested in that?
I'd say yes, but I didn't realize that it's something that I was as keen about until I was in the world, right? So I started modeling at a young age. And that was really just to make some pocket money, right? I was straight out of school and I'm like, oh, I'll try modeling. I can make some money from it. And then I realized that actually I was quite natural in front of the camera because my father's a photographer. And so this whole, being comfortable in front of a lens came quite easy to me because my whole life, my dad did that, right? And so... You
were the model for his photos?
Yeah, it's just like, when your father's a photographer, I don't know if anyone else out there has experienced it or a parent. Maybe now everyone's a photographer, but back then my dad would always be trying to push a camera in my brother and my face, just trying to capture the moments. And so because of that, modeling came quite easy. And then, I'm not a shy personality. And back then, when I was a teenager, I was even more out there than I am now. And I guess the combination of, entertainment and needing to have this sort of energy, TV presenting came quite naturally to me. And I auditioned for the MTV role when I was like 21. And then I got that and it really changed my life.
Wow. So you started out modeling when you were 19?
18, 19. Yeah.
So you just graduated or you were in college or?
I was in my gap year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you got that inspiration during your gap year to become a model?
Yeah, because I was broke.
Tell it like it is.
Yeah. It wasn't my calling. I just needed some kashish, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you got into modeling and then you enjoyed it. You felt like it was natural to you. And then from there, did your eyes light up and like, all right, this is my path now?
Yeah, I think to a degree, yeah. I mean, the few moments that I got to watch TV when I was a teenager, like all of us millennials, we would go home and watch MTV, right? or something like that. I don't know, each to their own. But so many of us watched MTV, and I would watch the VJs on the screen, the presenters, and this little spark in me was like, oh my God, I could do that. And I have a friend, and she told me that when I was like 16, she was like, what do you want to do? And I said as a joke, oh, I want to be an MTV VJ one day. I didn't think it actually happened, but then it did. It just sort of worked out, huh?
Oh, so you were modeling, and then you had that spark to go and be a VJ, which what does that actually stand for, by the way?
Yeah, so VJ stands for video jockey.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very generational.
That basically means a presenter.
It was specific to music television channels,
okay,
like Channel V, MTV, because they would play music videos all the time, right? And instead of a disc jockey, it would be video jockey.
So when you applied for the MTV role, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, I'm going to get this job? Or were you just like, oh, let's see what happens? What was going through your mind?
It was, I'll see what happens. Yeah. And then
it happened. And what was the reaction like? Like, you must have been over the moon.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like, it was the job that I had always secretly dreamt about. It was the job that I grew up seeing on TV. It was like the coolest job ever, right? You're going to work for MTV Asia, and your job is going to be like interviewing celebrities, musicians, and artists, going to all the festivals in the world, hosting some really cool shows, and talking about content that you're actually interested, because I'm a huge music buff, right? I'm like, this is the dream. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of like the most defining moments in my young life is really landing a job like that, because it opened all the doors to everything else for me.
So without that, you wouldn't be here right now.
Wouldn't be on your podcast.
Wow. So was you overwhelmed as well? Like, you must have, of course, you were like elated, right? It was the most amazing thing that could happen at that time. But was there any feelings of like, oh shit, now I got to like perform in front of all these people?
You know, what's interesting, and I don't know if you relate with this, but I used to be so much more confident when I was younger, because I was just like going through life with just such a high vibrating energy of like, I'm going to try everything. I'm going to be such a yes man. I'm going to just take risks and do challenges. If it scares me, I'm going to throw myself at it. I was almost in that sense, like almost adrenaline seeking, that failing was not a fear for me because I just had to do it. Whereas now when I'm turning 30 this year, I'm not as brave as I used to be. So this whole feeling of imposter syndrome or self-doubt, it only really crept up on me in the last 5-6 years, but 10, 12 years ago, hell no. Yeah. What about you? Did you feel like you were more reckless back then?
I can relate to that for sure. Yeah. So I'm curious though, for you, what is it that makes you not as brave as you once was?
Oh, I think life has humbled me, right? I've gained a lot more self-awareness since then, for sure. And I think that when your perspective shifts and your self-awareness rises, so do everything that comes with it, right? Your inner voice gets smarter, your ego gets trickier, and suddenly you're dealing with more thoughts than your younger self would have. And so I think that's it. It's just age and life, right?
Do you think it's also because you have something to lose now, whereas before you didn't?
Yeah. I'd say that's also it too.
Yeah, because like, you've been working so hard in this space for almost a decade now. And now you've made a name for yourself. And now it's like, well, if I do certain things, then sometimes if you do the wrong thing, maybe it can have an adverse effect on you.
It's almost like the older we get, does the fear of failure get stronger? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Do you feel that?
I'd say yes, because like you said, you feel like you have more to lose. Maybe your perception of self is, you kind of feel very comfortable with where you're at. And so changing who you are just sounds scary. You feel like, I've spent so long building an identity. What do you mean change it?
Right.
What are we talking about? Like I have my habits and they're here, right? So maybe. Also
the money side too. Like you're comfortable now. You don't need to be that 18-year-old Hanli who was like, I just need to make some money.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
So for working at MTV, what was the biggest takeaways from working there?
Well, that's a big question. So I did that role for about 5 to 6 years, and I hosted 2 weekly shows, MTV News, the MTV Show, and I interviewed so many different types of people, interviewed so many artists. And I guess my biggest takeaway is that status, fame, power, experience, these are all very admirable things, but they're not things that I hold to a very high value. Mm-hmm. I count your value as who you are as a person and your vibe, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I don't care what you've done, who you are. Like, what's your energy like? That's one of the greatest lessons, because I was around so many big stars, right? A lot of ego. You can imagine these guys rolling up with an entourage and like security and the managers. It's exactly as the movies perceive your big Hollywood stars rolling around with like a squad, right? And there's ego in that, of course. And when you're a presenter and you're young, you have to look past that, because your job is to just connect with them as a host, like you do as a podcaster. You just need to look past what they are presenting in that sense and just cut to their vibe so that you can connect and just have a good segment. And so my greatest takeaway was that, you know, doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. Like, it's your energy and how you treat everyone around you and your humility. And that's what people will always remember you by.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. But for you though, I'm curious, like, how did you come to that realization? Like, was that taught to you, or did you just figure that out as you were interviewing all these people?
I think I figured it out. Yeah, there were definite moments where I would be very intimidated. And then I would just have to, I had a good team at the time. Yeah. And they would support me, and they would have little pep talks with me to help me get out of my head so that I can present and you know, do my job. And it's something that you just realize more and more through repetition, that energy doesn't lie. You know, your vibe is right.
Yeah, and so I was going to ask you, I was just thinking about this. I was like, I want her to name some names.
I know, right?
Who are these people she's talking about?
I know. Assholes? I will never out the assholes because they will come for me. No, I won't name names.
Yeah. Were there any big stars from America that came to Asia, or did you go? You've never been there, right?
No, I've been to America. We had a lot of stars come through. One of my biggest, an interview that I was really proud of, was I did an in-depth interview with the Foo Fighters. So it was really cool to sit opposite like the whole band and be like, you guys are genuinely rock stars. This is crazy. Yeah. I interviewed a lot of K-pop stars because they're huge out here in Asia. Yeah. K-pop is next level, man. Like, K-pop fans are so diehard that it's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. I interviewed a lot of DJs that came through because... Oh, sorry, one sec. What is K-pop for the viewers that are watching? So K-pop is Korean pop. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Just wanted to... Because some people are like, what the fuck's K-pop? Because we're in Asia, right? You guys don't know what K-pop? Come on, get with it. Yeah. I've interviewed a lot of DJs that came through because Singapore was a really big hub for festivals like Zouk Out or Ultra. It's funny. Every time people ask, like, who are the biggest stars that you interview? It's really hard for me to like regurgitate it right now. Yeah. But maybe over dinner I'll come back and be like, this guy, this woman. So do you still enjoy doing that now? Interviewing? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, for the stars, like in that world, because I know you have your podcast, Just So We're Clear. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to be honest, since I've left MTV, I not have access to them because my podcast is just a cute little indie podcast called Just So We're Clear. Check it out. So I haven't yet, but I do get to interview people who I want to interview now. And that's a whole different energy. Instead of it being a job, it's like, oh my God, I get to pick this person's brain, and that's so cool. Yeah. Versus like, oh, I gotta just talk to this person. He's a dick, but I got to talk to him anyway. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So we covered your modeling, and then you started presenting. So when you started presenting, did you realize that you're actually really good at presenting also? Because you realized that you're a natural at modeling
But did you also feel that way with presenting?
Yeah, I guess. It's weird to call myself a natural because I guess I had to be in order to get the jobs and roles that I did, right? I mean, I've worked with some pretty big media houses in the past, like MTV is the big one, HBO. I've done specials with Vice, which was my dream. Like I grew up watching Vice because we didn't have TV, so I had YouTube. Vice was always my dream to feature on. So I guess yes, yeah.
So what was the pathway for MTV, and then you worked at HBO?
Yes, so MTV was the big one, but MTV I did in conjunction with other roles. So live events, modeling still happening, and then Vice was not necessarily a recurring role, and HBO, which is now, is a recurring role. And of course, I'm also a judge on that supermodel show called Supermodelme.
Right. Yeah. So just on the presenting real quick. So do you think that you could have a life where you're behind the camera? Because your whole life's been in front of the camera.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're around the environment too much. You absorb everything that I'm sure I could. Yeah.
But is that as fun for you though? Like, would you still be energized as much as you are on camera?
Yes, because it would be a new challenge. But I guess I'd have to really practice it enough to have a solid answer to that. I'm helping Emil, my boyfriend, to everyone who's listening who doesn't know him. I'm helping him do content creation where I'm helping him film. So I'm behind the camera and I know how to do it. I know how to set it up. I know how to time him. I know how to be a director to help him feel comfortable through the experiences of the directors who've helped me be comfortable. But I mean, I still have this little like perfectionist in me that I guess, okay, what I'm saying is when you're in front of the camera, you are more or less in control, right?
Yeah.
Because you set the tone, you set the vibe. But when you're behind the camera, you have to work with someone and you have to direct them. And I'm a perfectionist. So there are moments where I've noticed myself get like a little perfectionist flare up. And it's interesting. It's still something I'm figuring out if it's something that I want to do. Yeah, I'm just experimenting it right now.
So how does that show up then when you're a perfectionist, when you're behind the camera? What happens?
It's more like, do it again. No, you can do a better take this time. Say it like this. Yeah, it's a weird control element that I'm really recently learning about myself. And God, I don't know if I love it. Yeah.
It depends on the talent though, huh?
Depends on the talent.
If Emil's watching, Emil.
Maybe it's also because it's my boyfriend. So I can say that. True. If it was a professional setting, I would not be able to talk to someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic. So we're going to touch on your relationship also in a later segment. But I just want to touch on like the things that have created your career first. So we spoke about presenting, and what are the tips that you can share that are like the most essential things that someone needs to know in terms of presenting well in front of an audience, a live audience, and you presented in front of live audiences, right? And also just in front of really famous people. Like, what's something that you can do? And a whole crew of people in the background.
Yeah.
On set.
Yeah. Two things, okay? So firstly, anticipate the nerves. Just accept that you're going to be feeling things. You're going to be feeling so much. Don't try to pretend to be cool. Don't fake it. There's nothing, like people can spot a faker a mile away.
Yeah.
So whatever you're feeling, own that. If you're nervous and you're standing on stage, you can be like, oh God, I got to be honest with you guys. I'm a little nervous right now. Instantly, that humanity is so much more relatable than trying to pretend you're not nervous and then it'd be really obvious. So anticipate the nerves, accept that if they happen, they happen. So that in a way, when they do, it doesn't, blindside you. And then the other approach that I have to presenting is I have this kind of saying where the camera is your cousin that your mom forced you to bring to a party.
Ooh,
Okay, hear me out.
I like that.
So as a host, and this is more for video hosting. As a host, your job is to be the middleman to the audience and to the situation that you are reporting on, right? So if you were going to a party and you know everyone at the party and you got to bring along your cousin, right? Or a friend of yours, and you know how you always need to be cluing them in, letting them, oh, this person is that person, and you just make them feel involved. Do that to the camera. Like, make your audience feel like they're your friend and that you got them, you got their back. You're never going to leave them alone at this party. You're there for them. And yeah, I think if people apply that, they might feel a difference.
That's a cool insight. I like that.
Yeah.
I've never heard someone explain how to talk on camera, how to be on camera like that.
Yeah.
It's so simple. And that analogy is so relatable.
Yeah.
Like, you could imagine it right now.
Yeah. It's like you're bringing someone to a space they're unfamiliar with, and yet you are. And you just got to be the middleman, glue them in and make them feel involved.
What about the other skills though? Like there's a book of theirs called The Art of Empathy. And that's something that I know that compassion is one of your values. We'll talk about that also. But those soft skills that are really important for connecting, because it's one thing to present, but it's another thing to connect. So how do you connect with the audience?
With an audience? I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. It's okay. So presenting is not acting in the sense that you're not really playing a character. You're being yourself. There is a performance element to it for sure, but you're not acting. You're being you. Yeah. So again, people relate with people. Humans relate to humans. Be you. I know it's such a repeated saying, but that's it. Don't try to be what you see on YouTube. Don't do the, hey, what's up, guys? It's this. Like, everyone does that. You know what I mean? Everyone mimics what they think they should be doing when they're presenting. Right. And they're forgetting that that's done. The only thing that's not done is you. So just be yourself. Yeah.
And who are the biggest inspirations for you when it comes to presenting? Like, who did you look up to? Like, oh, they're really good at that.
Oh my God, Louis Theroux. Jesus. I love him. A little too much, but we can talk about that off camera. No, Louis Theroux, because he is such a weirdo, but he never pretended to not be a weirdo, right? And that's why we loved him. And he was quirky in his own right. Who else did I look up to in the presenting world? I don't know. That's the first name that comes to mind. I think also other people in my field, the music jockeys, the radio DJ type personalities. Yeah, they definitely influenced the way that I saw or I knew how to relate, because I watched them growing up and I was like, oh, I could do that somehow. And then, yeah.
That's interesting. That thought that you just said of, oh, I could do that. That's literally what got me into stand-up comedy. Like, I was sitting in the audience, same like you. I was like, I can do that. And then that's what got me into it.
Yeah.
It was literally that thought.
Yeah.
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 So it's interesting because when you feel that and you act on it, then you're stepping into like your power, because that's like your intuition talking to you, right? It's like, oh, you can do that. Like, and you act on it and you're like, wow, I actually can do this.
Yeah, that spark that you feel, the recognition of that in another is actually the recognition that you feel in yourself, right?
Yeah, that's like in the movies, right? When we cry, like, for example, there's a movie called A Star Is Born. You've probably seen it.
What? No. You mean the biggest movie of all time? Yeah. Yeah, I heard of it.
Yeah, so that movie, I was just crying my eyes out at the end.
Yeah. And
it was interesting, the fact that I was crying, because this is just a story that has been played out, and it's not real, but I was crying. And I was like, wow, I've literally like just felt this story. I actually kind of forgot what I was going to say.
I think the reason you cried at the ending of Star is Born is because you realize that you too are a star.
Oh, that's
that
it. That's
needs
what
to
I was
be
going
born.
to say. How did I forget that?
Gaga ignited your passion.
Absolutely, yeah. And also the fact that my brother's a music artist, and so that whole journey that we were taking on in the movie is kind of like his journey also. It's like, I was basically like Bradley Cooper in the movie for my brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's also the emotional aspect that made me cry as well, because I could see him in Lady Gaga. Anyway, I digress.
There's always one certain scene in movies that make me cry. And it is the scene where the father walks the bride down the aisle at the wedding. It's so specific. It could be like the worst movie ever. And then that scene happens. And I just have this automatic like response and my eyes cry. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is odd. Do you have a specific?
No, I don't actually. It's only when it's very close to home. Like when I see myself in that character and I know that I'm capable of achieving as much as they are, that's when I cry.
So you're Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's also interesting that you cry when the father's walking the daughter down the aisle.
I know. I've thought about this. I've tried to get very all like therapy MD on myself, you know, like Google what the hell that means. And I think it's just, I love my dad. I think that's it. Yeah.
So what impact do you think your father's had on you in your life?
I mean, loads. He is a very great man. You know, he's achieved so much in his life. He also had my brother and I quite late in life. He had us in his 50s.
Oh.
Yeah. And so my dad is 78 this year.
Wow.
That's quite old for a father. That's like grandparent age, but he's my father.
Yeah.
So, and he was born 1943. So he was born 2 years before the war ended in Germany. So his experience of growing up in post-war poverty Germany, his father died in the war. He was like the eldest son. His mother had depression. It was like, it's a real like heavy childhood. And he yet succeeded and built such an amazing life for himself. He opened a travel company and at one point in the world published the biggest volume and library of travel guides to the world. You know, he did that. Not a lot of people have these type of stories. So his impact on me is just, it's incredible.
So he encouraged you from day one to just go for whatever you want to do in life. Absolutely.
Super encouraging parents, very supportive of me just doing my own thing. They had a very hands-off approach, but it was always peppered with the whatever you decide to do, you make sure you do great. You know, it's the overachiever complex. It's the perfectionist, and that kicks up in moments of work or delivering. It's whatever you do whatever you want, but make sure that you are great at it. And of course that it makes you happy, but make sure you're great. Yeah.
So your parents held you to a higher standard then throughout your childhood?
I reckon.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't intend to, that was their love language, right? Do good, be good. We want you to do good, be good. But I think that this is a tale that's, you know, told throughout a lot of households that, well, number one, Asian households. That's definitely part of our culture. And two, maybe your parents were also very high achievers and that was something passed down to you. So, yeah.
Let's talk about body image real quick, because you're a model and I know that's a massive thing in that industry is body image, especially for women, right? Because obviously you got male models too, but for women, it's like, how do I look? And what was that like being in that world and being so conscious about how you look? Because you get validated from how you look. Yeah.
Let me tell you, models are one of the most insecure people in the world because of that reason. It can be very toxic if you do not have a strong sense of self and can get wrapped up in that world. Fortunately, I think that I was lucky enough to be of the generation of modeling where change started to happen. Instagram, social media really propelled the change that the consumer wanted to see. in representation, right? We asked for more body types. We asked for different skin tones. And in the last 10 years, because of social media, brands have had to listen and conform. And now we're seeing all sorts of Benetton ads across the world, right? But when I started, I was sort of at that cusp of that old traditional sense. And then I witnessed and was part of it when it changed. So I think that I was quite fortunate that I didn't get too wrapped up in it because I caught the wave of more representation. But at the beginning, it definitely did get to me on some days. And of course it would. You know, I was a young, impressionable girl. Yeah.
How do you deal with it now, though?
I educated myself on sports science, body science, like nutrition, my hormones. I just learned the facts of how my body worked. And I learned very deeply about nutrition. And once I changed my relationship with food and noticed that it's not like, you know, you don't eat to be full, you eat to nourish yourself. It changed everything for me. Once I started lifting weights and started to realize what my body is capable of doing as a machine, as a tool, it changed everything for me because I was changing my mindset of this is what my body looks like to this is what my body can do. And it was the healthiest thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah. So learning about nutrition as a model helped you and changing your relationship with food.
Changed my relationship with food, learning about my hormones, changed my relationship with my mental health and my physical health, and weightlifting, powerlifting changed so much for me as well, with both mental health and physical image health and everything. Yeah.
So what were the, when you think about it now, when you started that, when you think back to it, what were the things that, I mean, I know you mentioned what you did, but how did that actually affect how you thought about what you did?
Oh, you never saw your image as good. You would, I mean, for me, it would come up in like nitpicking small things, like look at the size of my arm, look at me when I stand sideways. Any excuse my inner critic had to pick apart my body, it would go hard. Yeah, and it was it got to points where it was really dark, but fortunately I had other things going on in my life, a good support system that stopped me from going completely into the negative thoughts around body image. Yeah,
because it can get quite depressing, right? If your whole life is predicated on how you look.
And I would be lying if I said that that's not solved yet. I mean, there are still moments where I would see a picture of myself and like that inner critic will come and try and make a mean comment. But the difference is now that I catch it and I know better. Yeah.
It's like me too. I mean, in the fitness space, I do that too. Like I post a picture, I'm like, no, I should have sucked my belly in a bit more. You know,
right?
Like stuff like that.
Yeah. But now we know better, right? But the voice doesn't really stop, huh? It
doesn't stop.
Your voice gets stronger.
Yes.
I think that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And learn how to deal with it better too. So you don't judge it when the voice comes up. It's like, I had a cake that day or whatever.
Yeah. Another thing that used to fuck with me in the modeling industry was that they would Photoshop me all the time. When you're doing editorials, that's just what they did, right? Yeah. And I would get to points where I would do a shoot and I would feel good about it. And then I'd wait for the magazine to come out and I would not even recognize the version of myself staring back at me. And that can really fuck with a young girl's head because it's like, you weren't good enough. We had to change you.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And you get so used to seeing yourself through other people's perception, through this Photoshop lens, that suddenly your true image of yourself in the mirror starts to get very warped because you're like, obviously I'm not good enough. And you can start to truly believe that message. Yeah.
That's a very damaging story, right? It's like, obviously I'm not good enough because if I was, they wouldn't have edited my photo.
Yeah. They would lighten my skin. Yeah. That's the Asian beauty standard back then as well. Fair. Yeah. They would make me fair. They would make me skinnier, which was really, I was like, I was so thin. I had the 19-year-old girl metabolism and I was, the athletic body type that I am. I was already thin. And yet they would Photoshop me even more. They would make my face skinnier. It was very weird. They once Photoshopped my nose. I was like, why would you? That's the last thing that I'm thinking about that needs changing. It was so weird. I guess you also then need to have a good acceptance that It's not me, it's them. Yeah.
But in the modeling industry, what you just touched on there is that I've met so many women in my life who say that they want to lose weight and they're already slim. And I think, I can't help but think it's a disease of thinking, to think that you're already skinny, but you want to be even more skinny.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you can be accepted by who?
Yeah. Yeah. It's because they're told that is what beauty is. And it's just, it can get so toxic. That whole Pandora's box of talking about society's standards of women's beauty and how it's perceived back then when I was modeling in the magazines and editorial, and how it's not translated, but gotten even worse now on Instagram. That Pandora's box is so deep, dude. It can go on forever.
Yeah, and actually, as we were saying this, one of the things that Emil's mum, she's a psychologist, she said, we live in the land of not enough. We live in the world of not enough. So like Instagram is literally like the world of not enough. And we see all these people that have been photoshopped and we think it's real. And the sad thing is, all these models that are coming up in the space, they think that that's the bar, right? It's like, I need to look like her. But that's not how she looks.
That's not even how she looks like. Exactly. It's so messed up.
Do you talk about this on your podcast?
All the time.
Yeah.
But I also talk about how I have days where I hate my body, because we woman or man, we all go through those days. I talk about the days where I stand sideways and I literally look like I'm 4 months pregnant. And then I need to remind myself that my period is coming and I'm water retained. It's just, I talk so openly about my body image perception and society's perception that, to be honest, my listeners probably are like, we get it.
Yeah. But it's something that needs to be continuously repeated.
Yeah.
How did you learn to accept yourself?
I'd start by saying that I'm not 100% there.
Yes.
But there's so many ways there's so many tools that I've picked up in my own journey. Like I said before, educating myself on my body itself, female health, sexual health. You know, it's crazy the imbalance of female health education passed on to women versus other types of general health information that the world has given. And women don't know enough about their bodies as we should. Yeah. And that's something that I've deeply discussed and explored in my podcast. I talk to so many types of professionals about this topic, because once women or men learn about their bodies, so much shame and misconceptions get lifted, because you start to understand that we're beings, we're animals. There are reasons and reactions to why we are the way we are. And it's got nothing to do with your value. Yeah. So learning about my body was one of the greatest things that I did. Going to therapy switched it up for me big time. And then just inviting so much self-compassion into my life. That, absolute game changer.
Wow, so okay. There's so many things that
I know. So I'm sorry.
About.
I just totally TV presentered you. I just threw everything out at you.
I'm trying to catch them.
I
know. So how did understanding and learning about your hormones help you perform better and understand yourself better? Like, how did that help you?
Okay, so ladies and men who have a woman in your life. Women are, honestly, it sucks to admit, but we are essentially run by our hormones. Emotional, our thoughts, everything is connected to these chemicals in our body. And once we understand that, we stop blaming ourselves and understand that it's not us. It's just our bodies doing what they do, the chemicals in our body. So much confusion, inner critique gets lifted because you stop blaming yourself. So many of us blame ourselves for the way we are. We internalize all the negativity. But once we realize that it's not 100% us in that sense, that blame lifts. And then you start to feel better about yourself and you start to have more compassion. And yeah.
So when you're talking about this, something comes to mind. So a week before the woman's period, she starts getting a bit
She goes through her
antsy,
PMS. Yeah.
PMS. craving chocolate, getting really aggressive. It's not aggressive, but you know what I mean? Snappy. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally because of the hormones in our body coursing through our veins, making us feel sometimes like we're crazy. And then, but we're not. It's not us. It's our hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a woman recently, and she didn't realize that cravings before her period is normal.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So many women honestly don't realize this.
Yeah.
They don't realize that the reason that they're cranky up to 10 days, it's not even 5 days, it can be up to 10 days before your cycle starts, is caused by the hormones of your body. Can you imagine going through life where you don't trust your emotions because you feel like you're crazy because things piss you off irrationally? Like, that's a very sticky and tense existence, to go through that and internalize that and to think that that's who you are, you know?
And the root of that is all just because of a lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. Yeah. And it even comes down to the schooling system. I've done a lot of pieces on this on the podcast, where we do talk to we get lots of polls, we get people to write in their experiences. And yeah, the amount of education of female sexual health passed on to younger generations and my generation was not enough. So yeah, it's the best thing you can do to support the woman in your life is to learn about her cycle.
Are you hearing that, fellas?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah. And so what about the full moon? Do you know anything about that? The cycle correlating with the full moon and all that stuff?
I've looked into it.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's like the times that it does sync up is purely what's it called? When it's a synchronicity, but it doesn't have to really do with each other. As in like if you look at oh my God, I can't use my words right now. When you look at a calendar of a woman's cycle and then the calendar of a full moon cycle, there is bound to be a moment during the year where they are both full at the same time. But it doesn't mean that they are directly linked. Not in that scientific sense. In a conscious and spiritual sense, that's a whole different page. But in a literal like science sense, I don't think that they are directly correlated.
Fair. So that's clearly one of your passions, is empowering women. It's what you do with your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So is it solely for that, or what other things do you do on your podcast? What other topics do you talk about? Relationships?
We talk about relationships. We talk about personal finance. We talk about the ins and outs of adulting. It's probably the most millennial word out there, adulting. But we just get so open, honest, and real about our experiences because I think the world needs more of that. I think we're all over this curated, photoshopped, perfect lifestyle that's all over our phones and screens.
Yeah.
That the world just needs more people just being people. Yeah.
So true. Just being authentic. Right?
Just being real.
Just being real. And so do you think you're going to be continuing the podcast for the foreseeable future, or what's the plans for that?
I think so. We're definitely going to be continuing over the next year. We'll be doing more of the same topics: sexual health, female empowerment, life experiences, interesting guests. Yeah.
That's cool, because I think women need to hear this stuff. Like, you've been in that world, so you know firsthand how important your message that you're sharing is. And that's probably where the inspiration comes from, right? Seeing all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's sort of wishing someone said it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the acting, you starred in this 10-week web series, right? Called Khloe. And I was just researching it. I was like, wow, this looks pretty cool. And you were playing...
Segue into Khloe.
Sorry?
A little segue into Khloe, the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you did there.
She's taking notes. And you were the lead actress. So was that your biggest gig as an actress?
Yes, that is... the commitment. It was a 10-episode series, and I was the main character. So yeah. So
give us a little backstory of the synopsis of what that show's about.
So it's pretty ironic because it's coming off the topic of social media that we were just discussing. But my character is a social media influencer called Khloe, who is also a psychopath and serial killer.
So you played a psychopath.
So I played Khloe. I played the psychopath. Yeah.
How did you get into character? Like what like yeah, how did you do that? That's hard.
I didn't need to. No. Okay, I know you've done acting classes, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about acting is that there are so many types of methods, right? But the way that I learned and I do my acting is that I play elements of myself up. I'm not the type of actress that steps into a whole new role. The characters I play are versions of myself. So I guess it's sort of putting myself in, well, I did do a lot of research on psychopaths firstly, but then just kind of going with my instinct to how I felt like she would be. Yeah.
So do you feel like it was quite natural for you to
play a psychopath?
Yeah, to play a psychopath.
In a fucked up way? Yes. Everyone was like, "You're so good at playing crazy." I'm like, haha, playing. Yeah.
Because I've done acting a little bit. I started in a movie last year here in Bali. I'm curious. Do you think the reason why it was quite easy for you to play a psychopath was because maybe there's a part of you that you didn't access before that maybe is deep in your subconscious that is wanting to be that person?
Yeah, sure. And actually, when I reflect on it now, it's sort of like that mean girl, my inner critic, the one that doesn't shut up about all the things that can be wrong about me. It's almost like she was personified through this character.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you given that person, that voice, a role, a face now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you just, everything you've wanted to say that you haven't said, you can just channel it into this character.
That nasty ass killing version of myself. She got to come through.
Yeah. And it's fascinating with the acting is like we all are everything, right? So for example, you judge someone for being aggressive or whatever, like we are also aggressive. And I feel like a lot of times for myself, like I've suppressed certain emotions or feelings because I'm there's no way I'm like that, you know? Maybe I'm not like that, but I do have the capacity to be, for example, aggressive. And it's like, for you, for example, we all like psychopath, we all have those capabilities. So some people watching are like, oh, I'm not a psychopath, but that's them, basically suppressing that part of themselves. We have a tendency to be a psychopath.
We all have the capacity and definite ability to be as psychopathic, sociopathic as we know how. It's just fucking normal. We all have an evil side and a mean side. We hear it in our voices. Some of us are better at shutting those voices off, or some of us spend all day trying to ignore the voices, but it's just part of it, isn't it? Yeah.
So was acting for you, because you went modeling, presenting, and then acting, right? So was acting just the next step, or was that something you've always wanted to do, or was that just, I'll try it?
I've always wanted to get into acting for sure. Yeah.
And how do you think acting has changed you as a person?
Acting for me, it's the best way to stop taking yourself so seriously, right? You've experienced it. It's like a giant play session. You get into, I don't know what it is. You are doing it in a studio, on set, in a theater, wherever the space is for you to perform in that sense. Ego is out the door. Shame, pride is out the door. And you just have fun and be weird and just be okay with that. It's like cathartic, don't you think?
I think for me, acting is, I love improv the most, like, because again, like you said, like being creative and just being playful, but sometimes you have to play a serious character and that's kind of weird. But like for me, because I'm always like the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like here in Bali, there's Felix, he does the acting classes here. And at the start of the class, we have to walk around in a circle and we have to look at each other. And he's like, all right, just take off the person that you normally are in your normal life, just delete that person and look at the person with a blank face. And I found that really fucking hard. I was like, why am I smiling?
Yeah.
Like, that's just my default state. That's just, I associate smiling with Aaron Darko. That's who I am. But then he told us to not be ourselves. And it was really hard for me. And I was like, wow, damn, like this is not so easy, but it's beneficial.
Yeah. It's so interesting to leave yourself at the door, right? And that's it. That's what acting does. Because when you leave yourself at the door, you take a step out of who you are every day. And then when you do that, you realize maybe I take myself too seriously, or maybe I should be a bit more serious. You kind of get that comparison to reflect on who you are. And I think it's healthy. Yeah.
You know, the biggest thing that I learned from acting, I know you didn't ask me a question, but
go off. Yeah.
The biggest thing I learned from acting is how I perceive myself. You know, it's like, wow, how I'm perceived. Sorry, how I'm perceived. Because that's a lesson that I didn't know before. Like, we do the Meisner technique.
Oh yeah.
And then people will be like, you're serious or whatever. They judge some emotion in myself, right? And they'll be like, oh, one guy said, you're lifeless. Because I was just looking straight at him and my eyes wasn't budging. Like I just didn't have any emotion. And I was like, oh, like
I'm capable of that.
He said I'm lifeless.
Yeah.
Fuck, am I lifeless?
Yeah.
And I started questioning that. And then just accepting that, at times I can be.
Yeah.
And that's really the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Rather than going away and just judging it and weeping to myself that he said I'm lifeless.
Yeah.
You know?
Also rude, but okay.
But in Meisner, nothing's rude because it's the impulse.
That's what they say.
You've done Meisner.
I've done Meisner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Meisner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is Meisner in your words for the audience to
Meisner to me is it's like tennis. Do you get what I mean by that? Yeah, it's like tennis. It's very much about trusting, and it's very much about letting go of control. In other words, it's not about you. Almost, I think that's what Meisner taught me. Meisner is like responding to the situation at hand, not trying to control the situation, which is a very valuable thing to take away into everyday life, right?
Yeah. So I could do it right now and be like, you're smiling.
And I could be like, you're...
No, you have to, what do you say?
No, I was trying to remember the technique. You're smiling, and it's like...
You repeat it.
Yeah, you're smiling.
No. You say, I'm smiling.
I'm smiling.
You're smiling.
I'm smiling?
You're laughing.
I'm laughing.
You're laughing.
I'm laughing.
You're serious.
Your podcast listeners are like, what the fuck is going on in there?
So basically, if you're watching this, whatever emotions she's presenting to me, my impulse is to, whatever that I feel when her facial expression changes or her emotion, like I can see her emotions change, I have to basically vocalize it.
Yeah.
I have to notice it. So it helps you actually understand emotions more as well. Because sometimes I was like, I kept on saying the same thing, but they were presenting a different emotion. So I was like, oh, what emotion are they presenting to me right now? So it actually helps you become more emotionally intelligent as well, which is really cool.
For sure.
That's what acting is, right? It's just all about emotions.
Yeah. And you know what? To bring it back to Khloe, sociopathy is also all acting. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Kind of took a dark twist with our conversation, but it's interesting, isn't it?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I think that acting... Everyone is acting, but most people don't know it because because when you're doing improv stuff, like you got to act out a scene. Like for example, we had a scene where I'm the barber and I'm cutting the hair of the wife, right? And then the husband walks in just as I finish, and I've got the mirror. I'm like, I've given her the worst haircut of her entire life. And this is the scene, this is the improv scene. And I'm the barber. So I'm like, oh, it's just finished now. And then she's in the chair and he's like, action. And then I'm like, it's finished. And he's like, oh my God, what have you done to my hair? And then the husband walks in, he's like, what have you done? And I go and start acting straight away. Yeah. I'm like, fuck, what? I'm like overwhelmed, like, cause she's acted in the New York, what's it called, acting school or something.
Oh, so she came hard.
She was like
so convincing.
I know, it was kind of like, what's a famous female actress? Real
Meryl Streep, obviously the big goat. Yeah.
quick. Yeah, it was like acting with her on set. And I just got out of character. I just started laughing. I just burst out laughing because I was like, fuck, that's too much for me to handle.
Yeah. You got thrown in with the big boys in that.
Have you ever had a similar experience on set where you're like, wow, this person's acting is amazing?
Yeah, I have actually. This was maybe 5 years ago, and I played a cop in a web series in Singapore. And the actress, we were in the interrogation room, so it's very serious, and it's like good cop, bad cop, and my castmate and I were with cops on one side of the table, and she was the perp on the other side. And I didn't expect her to break down, and she was crying. And I was like trying to stay in character, but in my head, I was like, is she okay? Oh my God, are you okay? Yeah.
So did you break character at all?
No.
You managed to keep it together?
I managed to stay together. Yeah. And I had to stop myself from breaking character to look at her to be like, are you okay?
But her acting was that good.
It was that good, yeah. So what are the takeaways for anyone watching who's curious about actually not curious, but who wants to become a better actress or actor? What are your tips for them? Oh, go to classes. I think this sort of craft benefits from learning and being around other types of people with this energy that just want to explore themselves. I think put yourself around people who have the same goal. Because the thing with acting and being creative or being an artist in that sense is because you're so open-minded, you're so just ready for new things to challenge your creativity that you need to be around that type of energy. It's like if you're a very open person and you talk to someone who's maybe not as open, it can block you, and that could block your craft. So be around that. Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with the fellow actors.
Exactly. Follow the thespians.
Yeah, surrounding yourself with the right people is one of the biggest things that helped you in your career too, right?
Yeah. Take yourself out of what you're used to and put yourself around people who don't care too much about what they look like or how they sound, and it can change your whole day.
What about the team? Like, because for you, when you were doing all of this acting, modeling, presenting, and you're still doing it now, how important is your team to your performance?
Oh, very important. Professionalism is everything. Because you never want to feel judged, especially when you're so vulnerable if you're the actress. There were scenes that I've done where I'm breaking down or I'm screaming and I'm really having like a meltdown. And the director will tell everyone on set, no one talked to her except for me and the assistant director. Today, no one else talked to her, okay? And that's professionalism. It's nothing personal. That's just work. Because if you come to me when I have to get into the zone of my breakdown or whatever method I'm going to use to get there, I need to kind of isolate myself with my emotions. My energy is very, very sensitive. I have to create like an orb around me to stay in the zone too. So yeah, the people around you matter. That professionalism, that respect is a big one. Respect to your craft is very important. Yeah.
Interesting. So you have to be isolated from people to get in the zone.
Yeah, that's my method. I actually meditate before I get into a zone.
Oh. Yeah, I saw a clip from behind the scenes of Leonardo DiCaprio on the movie Wolf of Wall Street.
I think I saw that clip.
You probably did, because I think it was Emil that shared it with me. I'm not sure, but he was just standing there in the office, and all the people were behind him, all the extras. And it was literally a few seconds before the scene started rolling, and he was just like locked in on something on the floor or something. He's just like, and then the director yelled action, and he's like, And he just went into character.
Incredible. Yeah, I've seen that clip.
Yeah. Is that kind of like what you do as well?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're going to compare me with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, I have a method. For me, my method is meditation. Because when I'm calm, that's when I can let my emotions come through. And yeah, there are other actresses and actors who can literally turn it on like that. Yeah.
So when you say meditation, are you doing like a minute or what? How long is it?
Enough to get my breathing centered.
So you're not even timing it. It's just you feel it when you're ready.
Yeah. Until my body is calm, then I'm ready.
And you do that before every scene or just the big scenes or?
With the big scenes. I'll even do it right there and then on the set. I've done that. I've literally had to call a timeout. I was getting a bit overwhelmed. It was a long shoot. It was an overnight shoot. We actually were filming on a rooftop. And this was a fight scene and also a crying scene for me. It was a lot. And we had to stop production halfway because there was a thunderstorm, a lightning storm, and we were on a roof with all the equipment, with sound guys, with, big metal poles, basically what you don't want to be during a lightning storm. So we had to pause the production for 2 hours for the storm to pass and come back on set. And at that time, it was 4 a.m. We were behind schedule. I had a very big scene to deliver. And I have no problem. Just in the middle, right before we film, my energy is not right. I just had to stop, literally get on the floor into like a seated like lotus pose and just meditate until I was ready. There were like 90 people on set staring at me like, what the fuck is she doing? But I'm like, this is what I need to do to do my job. There's a lot of energy. I need to center myself. Yeah.
So you're so focused on being professional and being good at what you do. So you're willing to do that because your well-being is the most important thing for you 100%. Delivering a performance that is good enough in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're focused on, understanding your hormones, changing your relationship with food, all these things contribute to your well-being, which helps you perform better.
100%.
Because there's a lot of people, so I experienced this, not what you're saying, but with my health coaching clients, a lot of them are entrepreneurs and they don't see, well, they didn't before they hired me, but most entrepreneurs don't see the link between their performance and their well-being. Like they can't link it. They're like, oh, I just need to work. Or like I wake up, I just need to go to work. Like, oh, why is this? And they're so frustrated, so anxious, and they don't have any self-care practice. So your self-care practice is the most important thing that helps you with your job. Is that 100%? Correct?
100%. Yeah. It's weird, right? There's so many of people that we know that don't take a minute to pause to consider that their body is everything. Like your mindset, everything comes from your health. And they just power on, fueled on coffee and, I don't know, some pursuit of what they think they're chasing without actually caring for the only thing that will get them there, which is their body. Yeah. But as a model, as a presenter, as an actress, my body is my tool. I mean, it's the same with you in fitness, right? We don't have another layer of something that is our work and us. Other people have, I don't know, whether it's an online job, whether it's teaching, they have something that's not them, that is their bread and butter. But we are our own bread and butter. So we got to look after that.
And have you seen people burn out in your industry because they haven't done that? They haven't taken care of themselves? Yes. Yeah.
Any industry. Yeah.
The people that powering through their day on 4 cups of coffee, Red Bulls, not exercising,
not sleeping, not checking in with themselves really.
So what's your routine like? Do you have a morning routine that you do?
Monday to Thursday. By Friday, I give up. That's the truth. Yeah. I'm very ambitious from Monday to Thursday. And then it's Friday. Oh, it's whatever. Just hydrate and move. Yeah.
Well, where does meditation come in? Do you do that every day or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday.
I meditate after I do a yoga flow. Once a month. I don't know. I wish I meditated more, but I don't have that practice right now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
How about the gym? How many times do you work out per week usually?
4 times a week.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's all the same kind of workouts? Is it like, what are you saying, powerlifting?
Yeah, it's strength training mainly. It's conditioning.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what made you shift your workouts? Because before maybe you were doing cardio mostly, or were you working out at all before?
I was doing HIIT.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of HIIT. But I wanted to change my body. And so my ex-boyfriend introduced me to weightlifting, and then I did CrossFit for like 3 years. And I was in like the best shape of my life during CrossFit. And I was also really overachiever at that stage. I was very busy with work. I was acting. And so I was doing it all. I was like counting macros. I was cross-training. I was fasting, all this. So I did it and I can do it, but I don't feel like I need to do this right now for myself. And I'm just enjoying my life.
Yeah, that's cool. So what are the other self-care things that you do for yourself to keep you on your game?
I journal. I'm a big journaler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
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 Every day?
Maybe like once every 10 days. Yeah.
Whenever you feel like you need to download stuff on paper?
Yeah, but you know what I need to do? I realized when I looked back at my journal a year ago that my journal entries were the most depressing thing ever. Because for some reason, I only wrote in my diary when I was sad and I needed to let something out. So I actually told myself to start writing when I'm happy. So that when I look back in my life, I'm like, oh, that's so much suffering.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Think about it. We're always we're always journaling when we're going through something heavy.
That's true.
And then we read it back and we're like, why am I such a fucking emo? Like, I actually have a really happy life. So I started to journal when I was really happy. Yeah.
Well, I guess actually adding to that, I think the podcast that you have is a journal. Like for me, this is also a journal.
100%.
That's actually one of the things what I like. Obviously, I like sharing and having guests like yourself on and stuff. But I also like the idea of this is my journal. So let's say in 10 years from now, I can look back at where I was today in 10 years,
Yeah.
and look back at this. And that gives me happiness.
Totally agree.
It's like I read something recently. Happiness is the memory of the moment, So it's like in 10 years, this moment will be even more important to you than it is now.
Happiness is the memory of the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I have another happiness quote. This is what my dad always told me. Happiness is when you feel yourself grow.
Yeah, that's true. We always want to grow. Actually, there's another quote that I have to ask you about because it's on your Facebook. Count your age by friends, not years. Count your life by smiles, not tears. That's John Lennon. A quote from John Lennon. So
I'm like, I posted that. I'm like, yes, I shared this. What?
Does that ring a bell to you? Do you remember that quote?
I don't remember specifically when I shared it, but I do know the quote, and I still agree to it.
What does that mean to you?
It's like it's the optimism angle, right? It's like focus on what you've done, what you've felt happiness and joy over, and measure your life by those moments. And it's just a beautiful way to look back at yourself, right?
Yeah. You're big on mental health. It's one of the things you talk about in your podcast.
Yeah.
So what were the biggest things that you've had to overcome with your own mental health?
So the reason I'm passionate about openly speaking about mental health is as a public figure in a place like Singapore, where because of our Asian cultures, we were not afforded the, how do I say this? We don't normally talk about our feelings openly, right?
Yep.
So mental health is a problem when it's not talked about. And so I wanted to break that and be like, no, I want to talk about my mental health. Yeah. And so just putting your shit out there and basically sharing when it's shit and reminding myself and everyone else that that's okay. I think that's the very simple message that we need to hear more of anyway, Singapore or not, that it's going to be shit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mental health is so important. And did you have anything that you overcame with?
I haven't had obviously I've had moments of real sadness and real struggles like we all, but my inspiration of mental health really comes from a family member of mine who does struggle with mental health, and seeing what they go through and supporting them through their journey, and then realizing that what they're going through is so normal, but I don't see it anywhere else. I don't see the representation. I don't see the conversation in my community in Singapore. So I felt like something needed to change and put ourselves out there and share our struggles more.
You mentioned something, I was reading about you, and you mentioned something that I want to bring up, which is it's so painful when you tell someone how much you believe in them, but they don't believe it for themselves. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole bane of my mission to normalize more mental health in my country. Because it's true. When you see someone for all that they are and the beauty that they hold on the inside, whatever you do, you cannot convince someone to love themselves. And it's one of the hardest things I think that we will ever experience with people we love. Yeah.
So then what's the solution then? Do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me. How do we get the people that we love to recognize their own amazingness? I wish I had the answer.
I had the answer.
Okay, tell me.
You just got to lead by example.
Yeah.
And then they'll follow the light eventually. The light will get so bright that they can't help but see it, It's
maybe. But doesn't that put a lot of pressure on you? Because that makes me feel like, my whole story is that I have to work through a lot in therapy is the responsibility of others. Because I feel responsible for people, which is linked to my family member, right? Yeah, my family member, the person who struggles. I feel responsible for your struggle. So I have to learn to draw boundaries, because that's just how it works, right? You have to learn to manage your life and then not feel so responsible for theirs, even though theirs might be burning. It's you can't fix people in that sense. You can't change people unless they want to be changed. So when you say, be the example, lead by example, sure. But to what degree does that affect you? Is there a limit to that too?
Is there a limit to being leading by example?
Yeah. Because I feel what I hear, and I'm just saying this because I hear this laced with my own stories about the responsibility thing. When you say lead by example, I'm like, then I got to be great. Then I got to be perfect. Then I got to make sure that my leading is amazing. That sounds like pressure.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. And it is pressure.
Yeah.
But another way to look at it is just to do what you want to do. And that's it, really.
Live your own life.
Sorry?
Live your own life.
Yeah,
that's it.
This is what I want to do, right? This is how I want to spend this day interviewing you. So that is, when I do things, for me personally, when I do that, then I'm in a better energy. Like you were talking about energy. I'm in a better energy when I'm doing that. And people can see that. Again, authenticity, right? People can see when a person is being authentic. Like you can tell straight away. Like you sat across from many famous people, you can tell when they're full of shit or when they're just being real. Like you don't need to read a book to figure that out.
For sure. Okay. I'm going to ponder on that. Maybe the reason that I hear that and I make it mean something else is because of my own stories, but I can think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm glad you brought up therapy again, because how long have you been doing therapy for? 2.5 years. Whoa. And you've continued it, so it must be beneficial.
Yes, but I am not it's not the therapy relationship where I go regularly. I go through stints, a 4-month stints, and then 4 months off, 4 months in, 4 months off, because that's a lot of work. And I feel like my therapist recommends that we take time apart for me to integrate and then come back. Yeah,
I like that idea, because now you're doing the work for 4 months and then you go and live life, and then you have more to uncover about yourself.
Yeah, you have more time to see if it worked.
Yeah,
more or less.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what were you touched on that part of yourself where you were responsible for other people. What else did you learn about yourself through therapy?
Jesus Christ. Oh, all in the same episode? This is going to be a long podcast, Aaron.
I like to go deep, Hanli.
Oh my God. What did I learn about myself in therapy? I have an unhealthy relationship with anger.
Damn, that's me too.
Yeah?
Are you me?
Yeah, I had an unhealthy relationship with anger. And honestly, that's one of the biggest things that I have to work through. Yeah. Responsibility for others because of the dynamic in my family. I ended up with that. A relationship with anger and sadness and openly expressing that because I had learned somewhere along my life that anger and sadness was a bad thing and that showing it meant weakness.
Yep.
Also asking for help because I don't like feeling like a burden. So I need to learn how to be vulnerable and ask for help, which is funny because people are so willing to help, right? Like if someone asks me for help, I'll be like, yeah, sure. And yet if I need to ask someone for help, I like twiddle my thumbs. I'm like, how do I write the sentence to ask for help? I don't know how. So those are the big ones. Yeah. And
you're working on them now with your therapist or?
I uncovered them enough. I've uncovered them so clearly that I can't not work on them in my everyday.
And you're clear on how they're affecting your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big one, right? Like when you see the cost of like not showing your anger and how that affects you, it's huge.
It's huge.
Like the cost of that is everything.
It's heavy. I do a different type of therapy. I do this thing called somatic touch therapy. So the difference between this is that it's 2 hours and a bit long. The first hour is your traditional talk therapy, where we take the issues that we need to pick apart, and through the talk therapy, we sort of rise them to the surface. And then through somatic touch therapy, I am on a massage chair, and my therapist supports my body through touch. And then through the safety of her touch, I'm able to express the emotions that we talked about in talk therapy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a different approach, but it's what I love about this is because it integrates the importance of your body's ability and just body's intelligence around emotions. I think like until I learned about this technique, I wouldn't put too much weight around what my body retained emotionally. But now our bodies hold more emotions than we can begin to even think about, right? Yeah.
Do you feel lighter as a result of all of this work that you're doing with yourself?
Yeah.
With your therapist?
Yeah.
You feel healthier, more clear-minded?
I'm so much nicer to myself. Yeah. I think that's it. The self-compassion she's here now. She never used to be here as strong as it is. Yeah.
That's powerful. What about the advice you would give to people about getting a therapist? Would you recommend everyone has a therapist or just a select few people who are going through shit? Or what do you think about that?
We all need therapy, Aaron. We're all fucked up. If you're perfect, I don't want to know you. Straight up.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who doesn't need therapy. Yeah.
So as you say that, I think about so many guys that I know who would be like, I don't need therapy.
You need it. And I think this is the thing that so many of us got wrong about therapy for so long is that we thought that in order to go to therapy, it means that you must be going through something big. When actually therapy can benefit you even if you don't feel like you're going through anything.
How so?
Maybe we do a good job of convincing ourselves we're fine, because we've accepted things in our life and we've maybe compartmentalized them or shoved them down, or we found coping skills where we're like, nah, this is just how I cope, I'm fine. I don't know. I don't think that all of us have it figured out like that.
You know what? That actually brings up a point that I was thinking about, which is most of us don't know how to feel properly, right? So when you say that, oh, we're fine, it's like, no, how are you really? How are you feeling right now? I'm fine. That's not an emotion.
That's not. That's a mask.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you talk about society, because I feel like society has numbed our ability to feel, you know? So actually, I was interviewing Mike Chang yesterday, and he was talking about how in society, we don't know how to feel because everything is about numbing. Like Netflix, going out, drinking alcohol, like it's all numbing.
It's all dopamine hits.
And then we intellectualize way more than we don't feel, so we intellectualize. So we make goals up that are not our own. That's not what we really want. But because we don't know how to feel, we think that we want that goal.
Yeah.
You can resonate with that?
100%. This is what I mean. Like, we all need therapy or some sort of healing or some sort of coaching or some sort of practice that allows us to have space to deal with the things that we push away. And we all do it. Yeah.
So everyone watching, you need a therapist.
Go to therapy, babe. It's so 2022. Just get on it. It's so hot right now.
Yeah, because there's so much judgment around that word. I feel like if you mention that word to someone, it'd be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, they just assume that something's wrong with you because you're going to a therapist, and that ultimately makes it mean for you, like, oh, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me, but not them, because they don't need a therapist, but I do. So therefore, something's wrong with me.
All of us were raised by parents who were raised by their parents. You know what I mean by that? The generational gap between us and our parents' is not that big. It's only 2 generations. And 2 generations ago, like, life was hard, man. They did not have it as easy and convenient as we did in the survival sense, in the Maslow's pyramid of needs sense, right? Yeah. They really had to work for their food and fight and go to war. There's so much trauma that has happened to humans. You think that just 2 generations it's going to solve that? No, right? Yeah. So we all need therapy because we're all products of deeply traumatized societies. It's just part of it. It's just truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next time your friend tells you to go to therapy, feel like, yeah, man, I'm going to go.
Do it, babe. Do it.
So let's talk real quick about personal branding, because that's something that you're really big on. And, you know, you're great at it. Like, you're crushing it with personal branding. And there's a lot of people out there that want to develop a personal brand outside of your work, right? Outside of the jobs that you've had and the movies that you've been in, the skits and stuff. How did you go about building your personal brand?
Know what you like. Yeah. And if you don't know what you like, at least figure out what you really don't like. And then I think it's just a canceling game after that. Just be clear. Don't be neutral, you know? Like, have an opinion. Do you like tomatoes? Yeah, they're okay. No. Do you like them or do you not like them? Okay. So you made a decision. Cool. Now you can make tomatoes as part of who your brand is, you know? Like, their personality. Have an opinion, and your opinion can change, but don't be in the middle. There's nothing more annoying than people who are like, nah, okay. I'm like, no, have an opinion.
Right. Yeah, like, what do you believe?
What do you like? What do you believe in? What kind of music are you into? What kind of music are you not into? What art lights you up? Just have an answer that's yes or no, you know? And then I think from there, if you start figuring that out, you can start to build on who you want to represent yourself as. Yeah.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that's something that I'm experiencing too. Like, I experienced that already. Like, you get to a point where you're like, actually, these people just want to know what my take is. Like, for example, Aaron, what's your take on this? What's your take on this? Like, oh, they just want to know what I think about this thing that's already existing. It's just my perspective that they want.
Yeah. Have an opinion. I mean, be open to the challenge. Be flexible for your opinion to change, for sure.
Yeah.
But have an opinion. Jesus. How boring is life to not have an opinion? Damn.
Adding to that, a complaint that a lot of women tell me about men they date is the men are exactly like that. They don't have an opinion. and they're like, oh, God, he just doesn't like any. Like, I don't know what he likes. He just says yes to everything.
Oh God, I have so much about that I want to say.
Yes, men.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to offend anyone with this opinion about why that is. So I'm just not going to go there.
Oh, funny. It's funny though, right? Like, I had my mom, she was dating this guy and he was a yes man, and she was getting so triggered by him.
Yeah.
Because she was like, he just says yes to everything.
Yeah. It's not sexy. It's not. Because as a woman, it makes you feel like you have to think for both of you. And women want to be looked after, more or less, right? I mean, to varying degrees, but that's part of our femininity.
Absolutely.
We want to feel protected and looked after, not to be the decision maker and leader all the time.
Yeah. Having two people, like man and woman, and they're both feminine, that don't work.
Mm-hmm. You have to take turns.
There needs to be a polarity. Like,
yeah.
Either the man is feminine and the woman's masculine, or the man is in his masculine and the woman's in her feminine.
Yeah.
It doesn't work any other way.
No way.
Otherwise, it's just butting heads.
No way.
And resentments, and there's no attraction.
Oh God, it's a relationship killer for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is, if the guy doesn't want to, has a fear around saying what he believes or what he wants or all these kind of things, then he does need therapy, because there's a reason why he's fearful of that. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a trauma-related thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point again, man. Therapy. Like, we all need it.
Yeah.
Therapy or coaching or healing, whatever it is to support you, supporting yourself. Huh? The work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the personal brand, you're just posting things. For example, let's say on your Instagram, you're posting things that are true to you. That's it.
Yes.
And that's your brand.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. My brand is myself, because I'm a presenter and I guess personality in commas. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just posting about like what you like doing in your life.
What I believe in, my opinions, everything we covered in this podcast.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's that simple. There's not any magic gold dust to it.
So I think it's a combination of things, right? It's like the willingness to put yourself out there on the internet and everything that comes with that, the fear of getting seen, the fear of being judged. You just got to do it anyway. You got to put yourself out there. And then, I mean, how else are you going to attract your tribe if you don't put yourself out there, right?
Good point.
So you put yourself out there on the internet and you be authentically yourself, and you expose yourself through collaborations. You cross-collaborate with other people in your field, or even not in your field that you're just interested in. And you do the, come on, let's feature each other on each other's platforms thing. And then you be consistent with your content, but you keep it to a certain quality. Whether the quality is image quality, so you have really nice photos, that can work, or it's your content quality. The text below your photos actually impacts people, but make sure it's quality, right? Make sure it's not just a selfie with a blurred photo. Make sure it's good. And then once you have that going and you have momentum, of course, there are many other ways to get yourself off the ground. There are so many hacks that social media influencers use these days. I'm not going to get into it, but the next step after that would be to create a media kit where you basically bio yourself, you share what you're about, you share your statistics, and then you blast that baby out to all the brands and other personalities that you want to work with. And you just keep putting yourself out there. And something will bite. Something will happen. Yeah.
Nice tips.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. It's really clear and concise for people.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with the judgment and the hate online? Because you must get that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Like, there are some days where I'm just like, oh, fuck off. But then most of the time I'm like, damn, the type of person who really is picking apart people in the comment section on Instagram, they're a really sad person. And I'm not just saying that because they're a loser. I mean, like, they're sad. Like, if this is the thing that they need to happen in their life to feel something, that's just a sad situation. So I just feel sad for them. Yeah.
That's a nice way, compassionate way of looking at it. It's like you understand their situation. Like,
yeah. Can you imagine? The only hit you get in the day is to try to piss people off online. Yikes. Yeah.
So that's just a sign of the their life not going as good as they want it to go, so they have to project onto someone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're not affected by that anymore. But you must have been at the start, of course.
At the beginning, I actually found it quite funny.
Oh, really?
Because I was like, am I that triggering? That people need to do something about it? Wow, I must be doing something right. This is funny to me because I don't think I'm controversial. But now I really am just like, trolls are trolls.
Yeah. So we're coming to a close, but there's one topic that we haven't covered, and I want to touch on it real quick. I think you know what it is.
No.
That's why you're smiling. I'm just curious, how would you describe your relationship with your boyfriend?
We're very playful, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
We're very playful. We're very similar, actually. We share similar values, but the values that we contrast and compromise for each other. I think we really balance each other out. And above all, we really like each other. Yeah. I guess we love each other. I don't know. But we really dig each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you manage the long distance aspect?
I struggle with the long distance because my primary love language is physical touch. I guess the only thing I can do for long distance is to just stop focusing on it. It's to not make that my day, make my day my day. Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what I could ask you that's not too sensitive.
We're very playful. This morning, I actually put him in a chokehold. Like, I really went for it, and I was squeezing, and I'm like, you better tap out. I am that type of girlfriend. Yeah. I'm so annoying.
It's like that meme that you posted on the Instagram.
Yeah, we're really like that. When I'm not with him, I miss him. But when I'm around him, I just want to annoy the shit out of him. But it's fun.
Yeah. I'm like, where did she learn that chokehold?
I know, right? I
was like, damn, that was pretty good.
So I actually briefly did a stint with ONE FC, and for that day,
that's right,
and I think something might happen in the year. We'll see. ... I'd love to continue hosting for them.
ONE FC, by the way, is basically how I describe it is the Asian UFC.
It's the Asian UFC.
Yeah.
It's a big gig.
It's a big deal.
It's big.
And you were the host for that.
I hosted
in
something for them. I couldn't go in the ring because of the pandemic. We had the social distancing issues, but I fingers crossed. We'll see. Touch wood.
Yeah.
I'd love to graduate to sports broadcasting. So anyway, because of it, they put me through a BJJ boot camp. And my ex was really into BJJ, and the only move that I really took away from it was the rear naked chokehold. So that's my move. I will put you in a chokehold.
Better watch out.
Yeah.
It was good because obviously I practiced jiu-jitsu, and that was, I was like, damn.
She knew what to do.
She's looking that in like, damn, he's sleeping in 6 seconds.
Yeah, I really went for it today.
So in closing, is there anything you would like to share with the audience that we haven't covered? Anything that you want people to know about you, or just advice, general life advice?
Be careful who you idolize. I think that's a good piece of advice, because these days with social media becoming it's almost becoming like a temple, an online temple, right? Like fans for all sorts of personalities. Like you have fans for stuff that 10 years ago didn't exist. It's weird. People are starting to idolize, worship, or admire so many different types of personalities out there. And I guess just be careful where you put your energy towards in that sense. I mean, we are all
impressionable.
We're all impressionable to a degree. So be careful who you look up to, because that person could be, and when I say this to women, for example, that chick that you adore on Instagram could be photoshopping her photos. It could not be real, right? And so be careful if you make that your standard, because that's very dangerous. The coach or the healer who's churning out all this advice that doesn't actually follow or embody what they're putting out there, that's disingenuine. Be careful to put your energy towards that. So I think that's that. Just like in this digital age where there's so many types of personalities popping up, don't just give your love and admiration to anybody. Like, suss them out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's next for you? What's next for Hanli?
Well, more of the same. More of the same mission to empower women in my space in Singapore through just authentic expression and encouragement to learn about their bodies in a healthy way. More hosting, more modeling, maybe a clothing line. I'm hoping to get into NFTs this year.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm hoping to get into property this year. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Hanli, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a great time. We got into some deep topics.
That was so fun. That was very long as well.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to get deep into it and just really, like you said at the start, figure out who you are behind what you do. Because what you do is what you do, right? But that's not who you are. And so I want to get to know you on a deeper level. So thank you for coming on. And we'll link to your social media and whoever's website in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the next one. Ciao.
Bye.